If fighting breaks out in town, we'll have no place to flee.
If the blockade continues, ordinary people will starve.
In recent months, the conflict between the Myanmar military and resistance groups has been moving closer to towns and cities. With roads out closed by blockades or checkpoints, or made dangerous by fighting, landmines, or the risk of air attacks, civilians are being trapped in their homes. Hello and welcome to Do Athan, a weekly podcast about human rights stories from Myanmar. It's brought to you by Fondation Hirondelle. This episode is produced by a journalist from Frontier Myanmar. Names and voices may have been changed to protect contributors.
Even if we want to flee, there is no escape route. The road to Sipaw and to Nang Cho via Gauk Twain is blocked. There's ongoing fighting in Jokmai, which is on the road to Nang Pai. I don't think we can escape to the mountains either because there are Palaung soldiers, and the Burmese army is shooting at them from inside the town.
Mangenge is in her 20s and currently trapped in a house in Jokmai with other family members. This hill town in northern Shan State is an important tea trading centre with 3 main roads running through. But after the Three Brotherhood Alliance launched the 1027 offensive, locals had no routes out. During the day, people might go out briefly for emergency supplies of food and medicine, but before dusk falls, they scurry home. Even at night, Light Infantry Battalions 501 and 502 send out artillery shells at resistance positions outside town. The people of Jokmai turn off their home lights to be less of a target.
The entire town switches the lights off as soon as dusk falls. How can I be the only one turning on lights at home? If I work at night, I use a small light. I don't even switch on the light for the Buddha altar.
These are long nights too. Mangenge hasn't slept well for over a month now. Her young niece wakes often and cries in response to the sound of the artillery. Her elderly grandparents can only sleep after taking sleeping pills. UN OCHA says that more than 500,000 people have been internally displaced in Myanmar just since October 26th. That's the day before the Brotherhood's operation began. The Myanmar National Democratic Alliance with the Arakan Army, or AA, and the Ta'ang National Liberation Army. Their offensive in northern Shan State inspired coordinated resistance attacks in Sagaing, Magway and Mandalay regions, as well as Chin State. And the AA has also resumed its fight with the Myanmar Army in Rakhine State since 13th of November. So more civilians have been displaced since these new offensives broke out. But there are also others like Mangenge who are trapped at home because of fighting going on around them. Their routes out blocked or now battlegrounds. They're unable even to flee to IDP camps or safer rural areas. And increasingly the fighting is moving to the cities. So many more people could soon be facing this dilemma. 800 kilometres away in Jiaopyu, Rakhine State, townspeople are trapped by a land and water blockade. This was imposed by the military regime on 14th of November after the renewal of fighting with the AA. The regime didn't give a reason, and there doesn't appear to be any fighting anywhere in the whole of Jiaopyu district. Local man Gojo Tin says it's the first time Jiaopyu town has ever been blockaded, and it's hitting people hard.
If the blockade continues, ordinary people will starve. Some more affluent families will leave Jokpyu because air travel is still open, but if you can't afford that, you will starve.
Jokpyu is a key port and fishing town situated at the northern tip of Ramri offshore island. There's only one road in or out, and the military have set up blockades. Locals say no one can get in or out. Villagers can't bring their goods to sell in Jokpyu, so there's a shortage of vegetables. None of the shops have any rice left, but the General Administration Department is selling limited rations of rice to locals. Many businesses have closed and some business people have taken flights out of town. Fishermen can't take their boats out, so they can't earn a living. Fuel and commodity prices have soared, with one vis or 1.5 kilograms of onions selling for 30,000 chat. Go Tin says everyone is struggling.
Ordinary working people in town have been jobless for about a month. Some of them rely on the sea for their livelihoods. Many of them are tuk-tuk drivers. With the high fuel prices and no traders from the villages, these drivers are out of a job. In the rural areas, the fuel supply has run out, and the transportation of fuel from the town is restricted. Everyone in the fishery sector has had to stop work.
Back in northern Shan State, it's harvest time, but the fighting makes it difficult or impossible for people to get to their farms, so the economy of Jokmay is suffering. Northern Shan State has been the centre of ethnic conflict for decades. But before the coup, it was often local and sporadic skirmishes between different Shan and Ta'ang groups, and between them and the Myanmar military. Wu Sai-ku is the chair of Namkhon Shan Social Helpers Association, which works around Shan State. His organisation has helped IDPs in previous times, but he says since the coup it has become much more difficult.
There are more restrictions after the coup. We have to report to 3 or 4 armed organizations as they all control different areas. These challenges delay our work.
Makain works for a local community association in Jokmay, one of 4 that are still active in the township. They offer some emergency healthcare and they help IDPs in outlying areas. But they can't buy more than 30,000 chats worth of fuel at any one time because the fuel shops are closed. Makain says they're facing many challenges and risks.
The main challenge is transportation. Though we are a community health association, it is not safe for us to move around. We can reach some places. Other associations can't get there either. We're helping the IDPs, and sometimes we don't have enough vehicles, or people daren't come along with us.
Makain's role in the association is to oversee emergency preparedness. But when Doa Than spoke to her, she still had no idea where they might evacuate Jokmay people to, if or when it's necessary. There's a monastery in Jokmay which is sheltering some IDPs from nearby villages, but that won't be any good to anyone if the town is under attack. Makain is as stressed as everyone else by the possibility of conflict moving into the town. She joked that she might have to just hide under a chair. A local TNLA contact said they do their best to warn and protect civilians before battles.
We take precautions. We give advance warning to civilians before engaging in battles. We advise them to avoid certain roads. Recently, people prefer coming through our territory over going through Sakasa areas. We perform checks and facilitate their travel.
Since we first spoke to people in Jokmay, we've heard that one road, which was destroyed by a resistance group, has now been repaired by the Myanmar military, so some people have managed to flee from Jokmay to Mandalay. But not everyone can leave. They might not have a vehicle, or money, or fuel. Mangenge's family don't know who would help them or where they would stay if they went to Mandalay. So they're still at home, and still anxious about the shelling.
Now all we can do is just pray that it doesn't hit this town. If conflict breaks out, suburban areas are usually more vulnerable. But now the conflict has spread towards the towns. If fighting breaks out in town, we'll have no place to flee. All we can do is pray that conflict doesn't get here. But there's almost no hope at all.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Doa Than. We'd welcome your feedback on social media. This project on human rights reporting is supported by Fondation Hirondelle with the help of our donors. You can listen to our podcast via the Doathan Facebook page. They can also be found on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes and Spotify. You can also listen every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. and Sunday morning from 6 to 7 a.m. on Voice of America Radio. Please tune in again next week.